In this video, I'm going to take a look at the NEEWER Z2PRO speedlite flash. I'll be calling it the Flash for simplicity from now on. My aim in this video is twofold. Firstly, to provide a simple guide to using the flash with a brief explanation of the main technical terms and features before showing you how easy it is to use. Secondly, having spent a few weeks trying the flash, I'll be discussing whether I think it's worth buying, whether you're thinking of upgrading your old flash or you're totally inexperienced in using modern flashes, i.e. will you get enough benefits from the flash to justify the cost. The Z2PRO is a recent addition to NEEWER's range of flashes, and I've listed some of the key published specs of the flash on the screen. The flash has two modelling lights, a powerful wireless sensor and controls that allows you to use the flash in RX and TX modes with other gear, and it has, here comes some more acronyms, TTL, HSS, TCM and FEC. Now, if all this technical information all sounds rather intimidating to you, you're not alone. I've met many excellent and experienced amateur photographers who've told me they really like to try using a pro flash gun and possibly a remote flash setup, but they find the technical stuff rather overwhelming, with what appears to be a rather steep learning curve that can wait until another time. So if you've put off buying a pro-level flash gun so far, and I totally understand, as I've been in this position too, well then I hope this video will help you overcome your fear of flash. The Z2 series flash gets excellent ratings in reviews from the experts. Not only is it incredibly easy to use straight out of the box, on the flash does all the work basis, but it also has the advanced features you need to use in a high-quality remote flash setup if you want to do that, and it's very competitively priced for a pro-level flash. By the way, I bought NEEWER gear in the past, including lighting solutions, and I've been very happy with the quality of their products, so I had no hesitation when they invited me to try this particular flash and post an independent YouTube review. Starting with the unboxing, this version of the flash is specifically configured for Sony cameras. There are other versions available for other camera makes. It comes in an elegant protective case. One of the first things you'll notice when you unbox the gear is that there's no separate battery charging units. You simply plug your USB power cord straight into the battery. I really like the simplicity of this approach. The flash weighs 580 grams. Sitting on your digital camera, you'll notice this weight handheld, but it's portable enough. It has a separate stand to support an off-camera setup. I'll talk about this later. The flash has a round head rather than a rectangular head. I like the round head design. I think it gives a more pleasing light pattern, and it especially suits my photography and post-processing style, where I sometimes add a little round vignette to some images to give the center more of a 3D pop. However, if this is not your style, it's not a problem. Tests have shown that the difference between images from round-headed and rectangular-headed pro flashes is not that obvious, if at all, for many shots, so it only becomes a difference when you're becoming more creative with the flash. The head moves up and down and from side to side, so you have a choice between pointing the flash at your subject in focus or going for more indirect light, bouncing it off the ceiling or the walls, or bouncing it off bounce cards or in a softbox if you're using those. The flash has two modelling lights, which are very helpful in situations where you want to shine a light on a subject to help focus the lens, in autofocus or manual focus. There's one lamp on the head and one on the body, so if you're pointing the head upwards, you can still light up your subject from the body, and you can change the intensity of the modelling lights. I like the design and clarity of the LCD display on the back. It may take you a little time to get your head around all the controls and buttons on the back of the flash, but they're well set out, and the options are simple to access once you know what you're doing. One thing I really like is how easy it is to adjust the exposure compensation to the flash's metered setting using this style, a similar concept to adjusting exposure compensation on your camera with the camera's auto settings. That's what FEC stands for, by the way. One other very helpful feature on the body is this separate switch, where you can quickly switch between TTL and manual settings. Talking about TTL, and for the beginners amongst you, I think it'll be helpful to briefly explain at this point what TTL means and how TTL flash works. TTL stands for through the lens, and TTL allows the flash output to be automatically set by metering light through the lens based on the camera and lens settings. It's a bit more involved than metering light, as, assuming you're using a digital AF lens, the camera and flash will determine both the distance to the subject and the strength of the flash required, i.e. the closer the subject, the less flash output is required, and vice versa. The TTL setting will also automatically decide on how best to balance the ambient light, i.e. the amount of light already available in the scene, against the light that will be created by the flash. If you'd like to know how a TTL flash achieves all this, then there are some good explanations online. It's fair to say that many pro users of these sophisticated flash guns prefer to use manual settings and make their own adjustments to produce exactly the kind of lighting they want, rather than let the camera and the flash make this decision. TTL on all flashes of all makes can give you slightly different results from shot to shot, depending on subtle changes in the position of your subject and the ambient light and so on. That's one important reason why the TTL to manual switch is so useful on this flash. If you've got a TTL flash setting you like, then switching to manual will lock that setting for you, something called TCM, if you're interested in what that means. The newer flash allows you to do another helpful adjustment. You can select the focal length of the lens you're using, manual or automatic, from 28mm to 105mm. And this is important because generally, the nearer your subject in focus, the less intense the flash needs to be. If you're using a fully automatic zoom lens, the flash will adjust automatically in auto zoom. There's one other feature I need to cover right now, and that is HSS. The HSS function enables the flash to synchronize with all camera shutter speeds with TTL, not just the camera's maximum speed. This is particularly useful, for example, when you're playing with the lens's aperture settings to create different depths of field and you want to use faster speeds, although you should be aware that HSS does reduce the full power of the flash if that's critical for you. Now, I'm not going to demonstrate all the features and control the flash has. That would take too long. And anyway, there are tutorials and manuals online that do that, including a dedicated newer channel on YouTube. Instead, I thought I'd quickly show you how easy the flash is to use in practice, on board and remotely, starting with on-board flash, where the flash is physically attached to your camera's hot shoe. The flash locks into the hot shoe on top of the camera. You need to check that your camera settings are set to flash on, and you can also control some of the flash's operations from the camera menu, for example whether you want anti-red eye flashes on or off. You'll also need to use a digital lens that can communicate with the camera, i.e. you can set the lens's aperture from the camera. Turn the flash on, switch it to TTL mode and you're ready to go. It helps to enter the focal distance of the lens you're using on the flash, and you can use autofocus or manually focus the lens. In terms of camera settings, you can leave them in auto mode if you prefer, and allow the camera to decide on the best settings for f-stop, exposure and ISO. But good practice seems to be to use the camera in manual mode, giving you the same settings every time you fire the flash, so you can concentrate on adjusting the flash's intensity to get the best results. Then you need to decide whether you're going to point the flash directly at your subject or bounce it off something. Again, good practice, especially for an indoor setup, is that you'll get a more aesthetically pleasing result by bouncing the flash off walls or ceilings or bounce cards, reflectors that you positioned in the room. However, for this simple shot, I'm going to go for a full-on, straight-at flash, as I want the details to be very clear, like a mug shot. Press the shutter button and the flash goes off with a healthy noise. The flash isn't whisper quiet, but that's to be expected. Once you've taken the shot, you can check the results on the camera's screen, and if necessary, adjust the strength of the flash to a more powerful or less powerful intensity, using this big flash compensation dial. That's TTL. Using the flash in full manual mode is simple as well. The easiest way is to meter the flash starting in TTL mode to test out your preferred setting, and then switch to manual mode before adjusting the settings from there. Alternatively, you can use trial and error in manual mode to get the results you want, based on the intensity of the flash. It's so easy to adjust the intensity with this style. One approach recommended by the experts is to set your camera's controls to achieve a natural look to the image, and then set the flash to fill in the darker areas, starting at 1/4 of full intensity, and then increasing or reducing the intensity from there. Over time, you'll learn from experience the right approximations for the flash settings based on the distance to your subjects and the ambient light and the kind of lighting effect you're trying to achieve. There are lots and lots of ways to finesse the results produced by the flash, for example playing with the balance between ambient light and flashlight. If you haven't used a flash like this before, you may be surprised at how much you can adjust this balance. Here's a simple example I took using the flash indoors in daylight. This first photo is taken straight from an iPhone snap to show the actual ambient light. All the photos you're about to see were taken within a 5-minute time period, so the ambient light wasn't changing, just the settings I was applying to the flash and the camera. As you can see, there's a very wide range of different results, great for creative photography. As well as the TTL and manual modes, the flash has a multi-mode. This fires a series of flashes during a single shot. You can choose the number of flashes, plus the frequency of the flashes. NEEWER has posted an excellent tutorial on YouTube explaining how to use this function, with some beautiful effects. Okay, so I've gone through the key functions of the flash, and now a few words about using the flash in a remote setup, where the flash is used off the camera in conjunction with a wireless controller or trigger on top of your camera. You can, of course, use a wired-up setup if you prefer. It'll only be a few words because this is a setup you can learn a lot more about from online tutorials. To use the flash remotely, you have two main choices. If you simply want to place or hold the flash a short distance away from the camera, to the side of the camera for instance, you can buy a TTL off-camera cord. This one is for Canon cameras, but you can find cords for Sony cameras too. This is a popular choice if you want an easily portable solution and you don't want to spend a lot of money on flash gear. Or you can buy a wireless controller or trigger for your camera's hot shoe, and there are various options for this, including for example a NEEWER Z2PRO TTL wireless flash trigger. A wireless trigger is the best approach when you're using a more elaborate flash setup, with the Z2PRO, which can be positioned a long way from the camera, acting as a slave or master. Using the flash as a slave means the flash is set up remotely on a stand, and it receives instructions to fire from a wireless controller or trigger connected to the camera. The RX mode on the flash allows you to do this. Then you can use the flash as a master to transmit instructions to other flashes, wirelessly or wired up. This is the TX mode on the flash, and the menu on the flash gives you a range of options for controlling the output of other flashes. Now quickly onto the second part of this video, where having used this flash over the past month, is it, in my opinion, worth buying? Well, professional photographers will be able to make up their own minds whether the specs offer the level of performance they need to add to their existing gear, but I do think this flash is very good value for what it can do. For people with limited or no experience of this kind of flash, for people, for example, who don't have a string of supermodels to photograph in a professional studio, or who are not professional wedding photographers, is this flash something you'll use enough to justify its price? I can only speak from personal experience, but I think this is a piece of gear that you won't realize how much you need it and how much you'll value it until you've used it. Since getting the flash, it's become an essential part of my photographic life. There are 4 specific applications where I'm extremely grateful I own this flash, and I'd like to share these with you. Number 1 is a pretty obvious choice. It's for portraits and group photographs, indoors and outdoors. If you've only ever used an integrated flash on a digital camera before, you'll probably be taken aback at how good this flash is at filling in shaded or dim areas in portraits in a more natural way. I have some examples here where I was taking portraits with an 85mm portrait lens on a very sunny day. The difference between the non-flash and flash portraits is quite striking, and in each case I started with TTL and then adjusted the flash intensity manually. It works particularly well for fast, wide-open, narrow depth of field photos with a great 3D pop and lovely bokeh. I'm always going to take this flash along with me on trips and holidays when I want top-quality portraits. It'll be great, for instance, for photographing family and friends in front of sunsets. Number 2 is product shots. covering a wide range of photographic needs, from professional, commercial product shots, all the way to taking snaps of personal possessions, or in my case, taking high-quality photographs of gear I want to sell online. The flash helps enormously to capture the details you want to capture without a complicated lighting setup, and it's useful for filling in the background in all-white backgrounds to avoid darker areas in your photographs. Number 3 is using the lens for wide-open, narrow depth of field bokeh photography. This is an important benefit for me personally when I want to test a new lens wide open in bright light situations to see how it renders out of focus areas and capture those bokeh bubbles. The majority of my wide open bokeh compositions have brightly lit backgrounds in front of a subject in focus, closer up, but in a darker area of light. It's best to avoid direct sunlight shining on the subject in focus, as you can get excessive glow around the in-focus parts wide open. The flash on lower intensity settings is perfect for filling in these darker areas in a more subtle way. It's very impressive just how subtle this can be. It's going to be a great help for my more formal wide open bokeh shots outdoors and indoors. Indoors, one of the less obvious benefits of this flash in bokeh shots are the modeling lights. If you want to highlight an object close up, such as this candle, in low light conditions, you can use one of the modeling lights rather than the flash itself. You simply need to set the camera's menu to flash off and the modeling light will stay on. Finally, number 4, and that's the creative potential of using a Pro Flash. I've already shown you the multi-flash mode. You can use your camera's drive settings to take bursts of photos synchronized with the flash. There's another newer tutorial on that online. And you can buy a range of accessories that help you produce creative effects, for example by changing the balance between ambient light and flashlight. With a little imagination, or in my case, a little borrowing of other people's ideas, and quite a lot of patience, there are plenty of creative possibilities with this flash. So that's my experience with this excellent flash. I hope you found the video helpful, whether you're a pro user of flashes or you're totally inexperienced. If you've not tried a flash like this before, I think you'll find it's very easy and straightforward to use in its onboard TTL mode. But beyond that, I'm not going to pretend there isn't more of a learning curve to using the flash to its full potential. And to do this, you'll also probably want to buy some more gear to create an off-camera flash setup. So you have to ask yourself whether you need a pro-level flash instead of a more basic model. My own view is if you're going to go down the route of investing in a good quality flash, then why not buy a flash that has the features and performance that will stand you in good stead, not just now but in the future, and over time you can add to your setup with the right accessories. In particular, if you're investing in expensive digital lenses that cost a lot more than this flash, then the flash will really help you to get the best out of your lenses, and owning the flash will open you up to a myriad of new creative opportunities. As you'll have noticed, I've been using it solely with my digital autofocus lenses. The flash doesn't sync on board with my old film era manual lenses. Actually, I don't really care about this too much, because to me, as I've said, the great benefit of using a pro-level flash is it really does help to add value to my expensive digital lenses and light up special situations, for example with family and friends, when I'm going to be using autofocus lenses anyway. If you're interested in learning more about the flash and where to buy one, I've included links in the description below, and if you use these links, you'll be helping to support my channel. I very much look forward to reading your comments on this, and until the next time, all the best.